In a quaint village nestled between rolling emerald hills and a shimmering blue lake, two brothers lived with their mother in a cozy cottage adorned with climbing roses. The elder brother, Tom, was 10 years old. His eyes gleamed with mischief, and a perpetual grin danced upon his face. Tom was the kind of boy who believed every tree beckoned to be climbed and every meadow invited a race. His laughter echoed through the village like the tinkling of bells. His younger brother, Derek, was 7. Derek had a quiet demeanor and thoughtful gray eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of the ages. He loved nothing more than sitting under the ancient oak tree by their home, immersing himself in storybooks and letting his imagination wander to distant lands. One golden morning, as the sun painted the sky with hues of pink and orange, the brothers prepared for school. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of dew-kissed wildflowers. Butterflies fluttered lazily among the blossoms lining the cobblestone path. "Last one to the big oak is a rotten apple," Tom declared with an excited grin, his feet already poised to sprint. Derek chuckled softly, adjusting his satchel. "All right," he replied with a gentle smile, "but no shortcuts this time, Tom." Tom winked playfully. "No promises," he shouted as he dashed ahead, his laughter trailing behind him. They raced along the path, the wind tousling their hair. Suddenly, Tom skidded to a halt, causing Derek to nearly bump into him. "What's wrong?" Derek asked, a hint of concern in his voice. Tom pointed ahead. "Look!" he exclaimed. Just off the path stood an old stone well they had never seen before. It was crafted from time-worn stones, embraced by tendrils of ivy and patches of soft, velvety moss. An ancient wooden bucket hung from a creaky rope, swaying ever so slightly as if beckoning them. "That's odd," Derek murmured, his thoughtful gaze fixed on the well. "We've walked this way countless times. Have we never noticed it?" Tom's eyes sparkled with intrigue. "Maybe it's magic," he whispered with an excited tone. Derek raised an eyebrow. "Or maybe we just never paid attention," he said, though a hint of wonder crept into his voice. Tom moved closer. "Let's take a peek," he suggested, his adventurous spirit ignited. Derek hesitated. "I don't know, Tom. We should probably get to school." But Tom was already leaning over the edge. "It's so dark," he mused. "I can't see the bottom." His voice echoed softly into the depths. Curiosity tugged at Derek. He joined his brother, peering into the abyss. A cool draft wafted up from the well, carrying the scent of damp earth. Tom picked up a pebble. "Let's see how deep it is," he said, his eyes glinting mischievously. "Be careful." Derek cautioned gently. Tom tossed the pebble into the well. They listened intently. Seconds passed, but no sound reached their ears. "That's strange," Tom whispered with a puzzled expression. "It must be bottomless, or it could be dangerous," Derek replied softly. "We should leave it alone." But Tom's adventurous nature got the better of him. "I'm going to climb down just a little," he declared, reaching for the rope. Derek's heart quickened. "Tom, please," he pleaded with a worried tone. "This doesn't feel right." "Don't worry, Derek," Tom reassured him, flashing a confident smile. "I'll be fine." As Tom hoisted himself onto the edge, his foot slipped on the damp stone. "Whoa," he gasped, his arms flailing. Before Derek could react, Tom tumbled into the well. Tom! Derek screamed, his voice thick with fear. A distant splash echoed from below. Panic surged through Derek. Are you okay? He shouted, his hands trembling as he gripped the edge. From the darkness, Tom's voice quavered. I can't swim. Help me. Derek's mind raced. He knew he had to act swiftly. Scanning the surroundings, his gaze locked onto a sturdy rope lying near a stack of firewood, perhaps left by a farmer. He sprinted to it, his small legs moving as fast as they could. Hang on, Tom, he called out, trying to keep his voice steady. I'm coming. Derek dragged the rope to the well and secured one end around the trunk of a nearby tree. Taking a deep breath, he tossed the other end into the darkness. Grab the rope and hold on tight, he instructed firmly. I've got it, Tom's voice echoed, laced with a mix of relief and fear. Planting his feet firmly on the ground, Derek gripped the rope with all his might. He could feel the weight of his brother pulling against it. Coarse fibers burned his hands and his muscles strained, but determination fueled his strength. You're doing great, Tom, Derek encouraged, his voice filled with hope. Slowly, inch by inch, Tom emerged from the shadows. His face was pale and water dripped from his clothes, but he was safe. As Tom clambered over the edge, he collapsed onto the grass, breathing heavily. Derek sank beside him, his chest heaving. You saved me, Tom whispered, gazing at his brother with gratitude shining in his eyes. Derek smiled softly. I couldn't let anything happen to you, he replied, his voice gentle. Just then, an old man with endy eyes and a flowing silver beard approached them. It was the village sage. He had a serene presence, and his footsteps made no sound. Is everything all right, young ones? The sage asked, his tone soothing. Tom nodded weakly. Thanks to Derek, he said. The sage helped Tom to his feet. Let's get you both back to the village, he suggested kindly. As they walked back, the sun climbed higher, casting a warm glow over the rooftops. Villagers gathered around, their faces etched with curiosity. What happened to you boys? Mrs. Green inquired, concern lacing her voice. Tom opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, Mr. Miller chimed in. Looks like the sage saved the day again. Crowd murmured in agreement. Derek blinked in surprise. Actually, he began. But the villagers weren't listening. 3 cheers for the sage, someone shouted. Chorus of cheers erupted. Derek glanced at Tom, confusion clouding his eyes. That evening, as the sky faded to twilight, the brothers sat on the steps of their cottage. Fireflies danced in the gentle breeze. Why didn't they believe me? Derek asked quietly, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Tom placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. I don't know, he said softly. But I know the truth, and I'm so grateful to you. The door creaked open, and the sage stepped out of the shadows. May I join you? He inquired with a gentle smile. Of course, Tom replied. The sage seated himself beside them. Derek, I want to apologize, he began. The villagers were quick to assume. Derek looked down. It's all right, he murmured. The sage continued, You showed great courage today. Not everyone could have done what you did. Derek met his gaze. I just did what I had to, he said modestly. The sage nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes when people can't see someone's potential, it's because they're blinded by their own expectations. Tom frowned. But it's not fair, he protested with an earnest tone. Derek deserves to be recognized. Patience, the sage advised gently. The truth has a way of revealing itself. The next morning, the village square buzzed with activity. Children played and merchants arranged their wares. The sage stood atop the steps of the town hall, raising his hand for silence. Good people of the village, he called out, his voice carrying across the square. I have a truth to share. Crowd gathered, intrigued. Derek and Tom stood among them, watching quietly. Yesterday, a brave deed was done, the sage began. A young boy risked himself to save another. Whispers rippled through the villagers. The hero of this story is not who you might think, he continued, his eyes scanning the crowd. It was Derek who saved his brother from the well. Gasps of surprise echoed around them. Mrs. Green stepped forward. But how could he? He is just 7 years old. How can he pull his elder brother? She asked, bewildered. The sage smiled warmly. Derek acted without hesitation, without doubt. His love for his brother gave him strength beyond his years. Most importantly, there was no one around him to say, "You cannot do it." Most of the time, we listen to negativity around us and we underestimate our own ability. There was no negativity in the situation. Derek poured his heart and soul into the effort along with every ounce of his physical strength. This is the greatest example of self-belief. The villagers exchanged glances, shame creeping into their expressions. Mr. Miller approached Derek. We misjudged you, he said, his voice sincere. Can you forgive us? Derek nodded, a shy smile tugging at his lips. Of course, he replied softly. Tom beamed with pride. I always knew my brother was a hero, he proclaimed. Applause broke out, and the villagers surrounded the brothers with words of praise and apologies. Their mother pulled them into a tight embrace. I'm so proud of you both, she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. From that day on, the village was different. Encouragement and kindness flourished. Children were nurtured to explore their potential, and the villagers listened to one another with open hearts. One evening, as the sun bathed the hills in golden light, Tom and Derek sat beneath their favorite oak tree. The leaves rustled softly above them. You know, Derek, Tom began thoughtfully, you taught me something important. What's that? Derek asked, glancing at him. Tom smiled gently. That even if others don't see it, believing in yourself is what truly matters. Derek looked up at the sky, where the first stars were beginning to twinkle. I think we both learned that, he said quietly. They fell into a comfortable silence, the peaceful sounds of the evening enveloping them. Derek, Tom said after a while, next time I get an adventurous idea, maybe we can think it through together. Derek chuckled. I like that, he replied. As the moon rose, casting a silver glow over the village, the brothers made their way home. Their mother greeted them at the door, her smile warm and welcoming. Time for bed, my loves, she said softly. They climbed into their cozy beds, the soft quilts pulled up to their chins. Good night, Tom, Derek whispered. Good night, Derek, Tom replied. I'm glad you're my brother. Derek smiled in the darkness. Me too, he said. They drifted into peaceful slumber, their hearts light and their bonds stronger than ever. Moral of the story: when we believe in ourselves and act with courage, we can accomplish remarkable things no matter our size or age. By removing doubt and embracing positivity, we unlock our true potential. Encouraging and supporting one another not only uplifts individuals but also brings a community closer together. Always remember that kindness and belief in oneself and others can make even the impossible possible.